propelling development to the highest level. In the north, there were groundnut pyramids. Ahmadu Bello University was built. Textile mills were built. In the southwest, there was cocoa. The first television station in Black Africa was built. The first stadium in Nigeria was built. Free education at all levels were launched. And some of the products have ended up in very, very high apex of the public and private sectors, professors and what have you. In the southeast, oil was a source of revenue. And Suka University was built. Residential hotel was built in Port Harcourt and Enugu. And a robust industrial policy that produced the first steel industry in Black Africa was built. Now, I don't see how you can leave a workable system for an unworkable system. The constitutions of 1979 and 1999 were handed over by the army. It was their after-war package to be able to manage the country in a unitary form and to distribute loot of war by way of states and local government. Can you really tell me a parameter by which local governments were created in this country? Bayelsa, with its very high production of oil revenue, which is taken automatically to the distributable pool of Nigeria, has about 7 local governments. And Kano has about 50-something. And local governments are used as an index of revenue distribution. It destroys productivity for crying out loud. And I don't see any country called a federation in the world that runs a unitary system of government.
For us, restructuring means first, look at the federal-state balance. Our constitution requires 2 tiers of government, recognizes 2 tiers of government, states and the federal government. Okay? We look at the balance of responsibility and power between the 2 tiers of government and ensure that what is best done at state and local levels is devolved to the states. And what is best done by the federal government stays with the federal government. Okay? That is the first step. Second step, once that is agreed, the necessary steps for constitutional amendment should kick in because you need to amend the constitution. For instance, in our APC manifesto, we have committed to ensuring that we have state police because we believe that a centralized police system is inappropriate for a country as large and as diverse as Nigeria.
Every building you must lay a foundation first of all before you build the superstructure. So the foundation usually is hidden, and when people are clamoring for restructure today, a lot of the emphasis today is on the superstructure. Now the truth is this: if your foundation can carry a bungalow and your superstructure is intended for a skyscraper, if you amend the superstructure, your nation will still keep having problems and ultimately collapse. So the substructure, she's mentioned the fact that some are clamoring for a return to that particular document of 2014, but some are talking about the 1963 Constitution, before the unitary one was introduced in 1966 by the military. Some are even talking about going back to the British. So we need to be very careful. If the foundations are repaired properly, everybody will see with greater clarity. And then the superstructure can then be amended easily. And more so when I'd like to mention to you that the majority of people clamoring for some of the solutions that I've mentioned so far fall into the bracket of elders. Now, we need to understand that Nigeria, we have to factor Nigeria not only about the past, but also about the future. And if we're going to do that, we're going to find out that the youths also have ideas that are being formed, but are not yet well articulated.
Welcome back. You are watching The Core, coming to you live from Channels Television Studios in Abuja, Nigeria. We are streaming this program live on Facebook, YouTube, and on Periscope. And don't forget, if you want to join the conversation, you can using the hashtag NGTheCore, and the handles are Channels TV and Kadria Ahmed. Now, in that little clip, we saw the Reverend there again making a reference to faulty foundations and putting things that foundations cannot hold, which is the point, Odia, you started with. Dr. Jibril has talked about the fact that we've had restructuring. So, I mean, in your view, is that the answer to a faulty foundation?
Yes. We do need to restructure because there was a misstructuring at the very beginning of our journey.
But he said we've been restructuring
yes,
since, did you say 1934?
34 years.
We created a federal system and then destroyed it. We need to return to first principles. And there are two grounds on which we must return to those first principles. When I want to discuss with fellow Nigerians, I begin that story from Gbagi land, Gwari. And the reason is this. When Lugard wanted to create a capital for the North, he took a slice of Gbagi land and turned it into a capital. 76 years later, when the whole of Nigeria decided, no, Lagos was no longer enough, we need a new capital, they went to another part of Gbagi land and took it off. The Gbagi people are fractionized between 6 different states, local governments here and everywhere. What is wrong with having all of them who speak the same language and they are contiguous? What's wrong with having them together in one state? The fact is, the struggle for restructuring in Nigeria began with every ethnic group insisting that they want to be in a community where they can defend their language, their culture, and be able to relate to themselves in a way that is healthy before talking about how they relate to other Nigerians.
Professor Chidi, is it possible to build a nation when the foundation is ethnicity and this drive for everybody to be surrounded by people who speak his language, share their religion? In other words, can a Nigeria that everybody feels they belong to be built on that basis?
I think part of our crisis in Nigeria is that we have decided to construct a country based on a single identity narrative. And that identity is what? Ethnicity. Look at us here, we're all men. There are only 2 women here. That's you, and there's one in the audience. But nobody is talking about gender or sex as an identity. We don't fight over that. Yes?
Some of us do.
Now, no, seriously, because part of this thing is about re-engineering the way we see ourselves, that we are more than just ethnicity. Now, take something else. Now, how many generations are represented here? You'll see that this conversation is taking place within a very narrow band of generation. Yes? That is, people in their 40s and 50s and 60s are the people who are in this audience.
A few 30s.
It is unrepresentative. It's unrepresentative of Nigeria because life expectancy ends at the end of the 40s. And so now when you look at just these 2 examples, it tells you that there are lots of things that we misrepresent in focusing on this single identity narrative. And the one thing I'd like to suggest to us is Nigeria is not the most terrible ethnic map in Africa. Now, just to our eastern frontier, we have probably the most complex African country. It's called Cameroon. Cameroon has got a population of about 22 million people and over 250 ethnic and language groups. But it's also got the history of what? Anglophone, Francophone. And it's got every weather system, climatic system in Africa represented in that one little country. And it is so complex, it's highly ungovernable. And yet, they are trying, and as we speak, there is a secessionist movement in the northwest and southwest of Cameroon. So we shouldn't think that we are the worst. DRC is another country that is comprehensively ungovernable. But you know what? People are wrestling with these difficulties. The determinisms of our thinking in Nigeria have got to be brought to an end. And as a generation, the people in this room can help with doing that. We've got to believe that it is possible to re-engineer this thing if we believe.
Okay, but when we say re-engineering, what do you mean? Because in conversations I've had with people, I've not been able to get unanimity on what restructuring means. I mean, if you even listen to some of the public comments, for example, politicians from the APC say, you know, we are devolving powers, we're doing this, so it is restructuring, but we don't want to use that word because, you know, we don't really know what other people mean when they use that word. So maybe we'll start with you, Celestine. From the point of view of a minority